Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Well, an episode that I'm sure a lot of you guys have been looking forward to, and certainly one that I've been looking forward to filming, and that is replacing essentially the entire back half structural support pieces, including frame rails, including the rear cross members, and everything else in one episode. So, you guys saw me in the last episode build this beautiful brand new frame jig here. Everything is leveled out. The car is pinned to absolute perfection. You can see here even the rear shackle mounts all pinned together, and everything is exactly where it's supposed to be. Now, in this episode, I do plan on cutting out the old frame rails, separating the tail panel from the back side of the car, and essentially getting those rails out and getting these beautiful brand new frame rails, cross members, bumper support brackets, and spring mounts here from our friends over at AMD, all welded up in the car where they should be, pinned appropriately, and back to factory specifications. So I'm probably making it sound easy. It's a whole lot of work. It's a whole lot of time, but kind of like building a house, everything needs to be built on a solid foundation. And as you guys can see here, our foundation is crumbling a little bit on this car. So I've already gone ahead. You guys can see here, wire wheeled the perimeter of our tail panel piece here. That is a good piece of sheet metal, and I do wish to save that. It's one of the few pieces of sheet metal that is being saved on this car. There's only a couple little tiny holes, I think one on the other side, but the rest of it is in really, really nice shape. So we will be saving that, and that's exactly where I'm gonna start here, because that needs to be off, so that way we can have full access to the frame rails, as well as once the rails are in, we need the tail panel piece off, so that way we can slide that beautiful brand new trunk pan in the next episode. So, doing my stretches already, it's gonna be a long couple days. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead, grab my grinding wheel, and as well as a pocket full of freshly sharpened drill bits, and get to work on removing the back half of this car. Alrighty guys, well it's the next day out here, and I really hope that by the time the sun goes down today, these frame rails are at least starting to be welded into the car. Now I've got everything pinned in. I go back to, I don't know why the hell I waited so damn long to build a frame jig. If you guys are on the fence about it, just do it. It makes your life a million times easier and really helps me out with all this stuff. So everything is exactly where it needs to be. All of our pins are in place. Everything is sitting super flush all the way around. I've got my cross rail actually bolted in here in the bottom. Everything is lining up pretty nice here. So really what I can do at this point, guys, I can pull all this nice and tight together. You can see here, you know, it needs a little bit of hammer persuasion and some clamps, but just to make sure that everything is held down really nice and tight, it's all square, it's all where it needs to be, and then we can go ahead and weld it right up. Now, what I will do, I'll at least get the back spring mounts welded to the frame rail, as well as the cross rail welded to the frame rail, and really from there, I can then kind of lift things up, or rather, lower the car down onto the frame jig and get everything into place. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm not welding in that rear cross member. I took measurements before we took it all apart, and quite honestly, once the car is sitting flat on top of it, the measurements won't really matter at that point because everything will be exactly where it needs to be in reference to the rest of the car. But to give me a little bit more flexibility, leaving that cross rail out, because what I'm gonna actually have to do, because those spring perches there that are connected to the inner rockers, the frame rails actually sit up on top of them. So I'm gonna have to lower the car down most of the way, lift it up, kind of work it around and on top of the spring perch, and then I can go ahead, set everything back down, and with a little bit of luck, everything will go right back onto the pins there on the front of the jig. So yeah, guys, I went ahead, I already got everything on the car side all prepped out. It's all been zero rusted, it's all been cleaned up, and man, shouldn't be nothing stopping us from getting these things up into the car. So I'm gonna get the welder all fired up, and we'll get to welding on the back of these frame rails. Alrighty guys, so I stayed up late last night, got everything pretty much ready to weld in at this point. Our spring mounts, our bumper support brackets, all those are final welded in, good to go. I went ahead and just kind of clamped up the upper cross member here and just double and triple checked all my measurements. Got my tail panel obviously just clamped in here. You would not want to weld it in at this point because we still need to be able to get our trunk pan up and in there next. So yeah, this is all just clamped in and kind of free hanging right now, but double checked, triple checked all these measurements here. And yeah, everything is coming together really nice. I know I already said it, but man, that frame jig sure makes things a whole lot easier and takes pretty much all of the guesswork out of it at this point. Went ahead, I also pinned in the back seat pan to the frame rails just to make sure that they're held up nice and tight. Everything lined up really good there. And then I've also got my front mounts here that are connected to the rockers. I clamped those in place and yeah, got those all pinned in and ready to go as well. Now, one kind of funny thing, I forgot to take measurements of the upper cross member here, kind of the spacing in between the two pieces. And I went back and looked at one of my old videos on the Charger actually, and that measured in at 31 inches between the tabs of the frame rails. And it's funny to be able to go back and look back on that kind of stuff, but definitely helps out. So with that guys, I think I'm gonna go ahead and pop this tail panel back off and start welding in these rear frame rails and wrap up this job. And what's really nice, once the frame rails go in, everything else should hopefully fly. Oh, one thing that I did do back here, and you guys may or may not have seen it, I did not weld in those bumper support brackets solid. I left these three right here off just because that extension piece is gonna have to be slid in here and moved around and manipulated just a little bit when it comes time to fit the trunk pan and the trunk drops in. So don't want to put that in place just in case it sticks out too far or needs to go in further. Gives me some more flexibility when everything is going back together. So with that guys, enough talking. Let's go ahead and fire up the welder and get these frame rails welded in. Alrighty, you guys, well, with dust still settling in the air and paint fumes working their way out of the shop, I'm happy to say the rear frame rails are officially done on this car. And I'm super happy with how everything turned out. You know, I still have to go back through here, clean some things up, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and take care of that when I'm fitting the trunk pan, which, speaking of, so as I was saying, we can officially fit the trunk pan now, which, voila, you guys can see it in the back of the car here. Although it is very, very dirty. You may have actually seen this sitting in the back of the car while I was DA sanding because I got way too excited and had to fit this in the car. But guys, as you can see here, the AMD sheet metal fits absolutely beautifully. Got nice symmetry here across the back support pieces, as well as a very, very flush and tight fitting trunk pan to our inner wheel houses. So in the next episode, you guys can look forward to me pulling this pan back out. I'm actually gonna get the car off of the frame jig also. Now, while this is like the best possible setup you could ever have for doing frame rails, it is not the most ergonomic solution for installing a trunk pan, and I don't feel like working off a ladder and getting in the back of the car the whole time. So we're actually gonna wheel the suspension back in here, get it underneath the back of the car, get it back down at ride height, make sure everything is exactly where I want it, so that way we can go ahead, prep out, weld in this beautiful trunk pan, followed by the wheel houses, followed by the quarters, and then this thing will be heading out of my shop. So, man, it's come such a long ways, and you know, this project is really, the scope has expanded quite a bit since starting on this thing. Didn't know we were gonna have to do rear frame rails, so I'm happy to have actually knocked that out now. But on to the next thing, guys. Got to keep on rolling. Got a lot of really cool content coming up, not only on this car, but also back on the Charger, as well as a brand new build that is going to come to the channel at the beginning of the new year. So today is actually Christmas. Tomorrow this video is going to come out, and I hope you guys all had a great holiday with your families. And yeah, we're going to get right back at it tomorrow, get this trunk pan wrapped up, and keep it rolling. So until next time, guys, take care. I'll see y'all again real soon.